Episode 56 Hong Kong dollars August 15, 2023. Saving money without mentioning climate change. Clean energy and opposition. United States. California, Trinidad. Letters to the editor, August 11, 2023, Time Standard. Time Standard reader, smoke pollution plays role in dementia. Wood smoke-free air helps protect our brain health, and we need better awareness of this fact. Reader, smoke pollution plays role in dementia. Excerpts edited by Rozep for brevity and clarity and relationship to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates. A recent article about this year's Alzheimer's Association fundraiser, Teams Forming for Walk to End Alzheimer's, August 6, mentioned some modifiable risk factors for Alzheimer's disease, but left out one of particular relevance to Humboldt County, wood smoke pollution. As a research review article has put it, it is clear from the literature that both ambient air pollution and anthropogenic wood smoke exposures are associated with increased Alzheimer's disease onset. Influence of wood smoke exposure on molecular mechanisms underlying Alzheimer's disease, Schuller, et al. 2020. The Mayo Clinic website likewise states, human studies have found that air pollution exposure, particularly from traffic exhaust and burning wood, is associated with greater dementia risk. One peer-reviewed study, for example, linked using a wood stove with a 74% increased risk of developing dementia. Not using a wood stove oneself but living in a neighborhood where wood heating is common increased dementia risk by 55%. Fine particle air pollution, known as PM2.5, is not just bad for lung and heart health, it's bad for our brains too. And burning wood, even in a newer certified wood stove with dry wood, creates an outsized and potent source of PM2.5. The California Air Resources Board, CARB, estimates that approximately 365 tons of PM2.5 is emitted annually in Humboldt County by residential wood heating, far more than from all the county's motor vehicles combined or from industrial processes. Wood smoke-free air helps protect our brain health, and we need better awareness of this fact. Montana. Montana youths win landmark climate crisis lawsuit. https://www.rollingstone.com/politics/case-news/montana-climate-lawsuit-12348066611. A judge ruled that 16 young plaintiffs had been harmed by a state provision that curbed considerations of climate change when deciding on energy projects. August 14, 2023. Climate activists and supporters gathering near a Helena, Montana courthouse during arguments for Held v. Montana. Excerpts edited by Rozep for brevity and clarity and relationship to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates. A judge in Montana has ruled in favor of a coalition of young people who claimed the state had violated their constitutional right to a clean and healthy environment. The case, Held v. Montana, was brought by 16 youths from all over Montana, whose ages range from 5 to 22. They alleged that they'd been significantly harmed by a provision of the Montana Environmental Policy Act that curbed considerations of climate change when state officials made decisions on energy projects. The new ruling, handed down on August 14, 2023, ruled that provision violated the state constitution. The ruling is a major victory for activists trying to address climate change through the courts, a difficult task. Such efforts had previously fallen short, like a case in Utah that was dismissed, and a federal suit that was delayed for years before a federal appeals court reluctantly threw it out in 2020, saying climate change was not an issue for the courts. The Montana State Constitution, adopted in 1972, that aimed to ensure a clean and healthful environment for present and future generations. Only two other state constitutions contain similar language, Pennsylvania and New York. That constitutional language did not prevent the state of Montana from constructing of 2 coal-fired power plants in the 1980s. In the early 2000s, as concerns about climate change grew, the fossil fuel industry successfully lobbied the state legislature to adopt rules that prohibited permit reviews from considering the effects of climate change. It was those provisions that were targeted, with plaintiffs laying out the ways climate change had impacted their physical and mental health. The suit was brought in 2020, and it went to trial in June 2023. Many had expected the state to argue against climate science, but they instead argued the state legislature should handle the issue, not the courts. During closing arguments, the Assistant Attorney General derided the trial as a week-long airing of political grievances that properly belong in the legislature, not a court of law. One of the plaintiffs said, And the blame, there's such straw man arguments. It's not Missoula running this case, a reference to the largely liberal city. It's people from all across the state. That's what gives it such power. ROSEP View. This opinion piece describes some of the economic incentives of the Inflation Reduction Act that are so extensive that the average American has to search for the one that fits them, and then probably would have to write a grant to get the money. Excluding landlords and renters from tax credits for energy efficiency improvements? Actually, that makes sense to ROSEP, since landlords can increase the rent after improvements to get their investment back, and renters would not be paying for substantial improvements, such as replacement of a furnace with a heat pump, if they might leave the rental the next year. The opinion writer below also describes the Inflation Reduction Act as a mind-bogglingly vast basket of incentives for corporations and households, putting the onus on communities and individuals to organize themselves to take advantage of this law, which polls show the general public doesn't understand very well. For low-income places, making use of this law is an even heavier lift. Wealthier places with grant writers and planning commissions have a leg up on much of this funding. New York. The New York Times, opinion. How to make sure federal climate money helps everyone. August 13, 2023. https://www.newyorktimes.com/2023/08/1/3/opinion/federal-climate-funds-ira.html. Excerpts edited by ROSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. After President Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act 1 year ago, Teslas began popping up everywhere in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where I live. More solar panels appeared on my neighbors' roofs. Mini-split units that heat and cool became all the rage. In wealthy places, the tax credits that have been rolling out because of that landmark law encouraged people to make big purchases that will reduce greenhouse gases. But in Detroit, where I'm renovating a house, I have yet to spot a Tesla. We installed a mini-split, but it doesn't look likely that we'll get a tax credit for it. Only owner-occupied residences are eligible, my tax preparer told me, and we don't live in the house. That's a hangover from the past, when tax credits aimed at encouraging energy efficiency largely excluded landlords and renters. The Inflation Reduction Act is projected to reduce greenhouse gases by 42% by 2030. It provides billions of dollars to assist communities with environmental harm. It offers incentives for green technologies on U.S. soil, like the Form Energy factory in Weirton, West Virginia, which will make batteries that store solar and wind power for electrical grids. It finances the wind farm planned in North Dakota at the Standing Rock Reservation. To pass, it had to be all carrots and no sticks. It contains almost no restrictions on greenhouse gas emissions. It's a mind-bogglingly vast basket of incentives for corporations and households, putting the onus on communities and individuals to organize themselves to take advantage of this law, which polls show the general public doesn't understand very well. For low-income places, making use of this law is an even heavier lift. Wealthier places with grant writers and planning commissions have a leg up on much of this funding. A tax credit is available for used electric vehicles. An EPA green bank makes borrowing money to buy solar panels as easy as getting a car loan. In January 2024, consumers qualify for electric vehicle tax credits on the front end when purchasing a qualifying vehicle from a dealer. Communities have a special network that provides technical support. We should pay communities for the energy generated by their solar panels or pay them to conserve energy by doing small things, like turning off their hot water heaters for a few hours. This concept, called virtual power plants, has been championed by the Department of Energy. But some of the deadlines come up so quickly that it was virtually impossible for places that weren't already shovel-ready to apply. There are good reasons to allocate the money quickly. Fighting climate change is a race against time. It also might be a race against Republicans who want to claw the money back. Hawaii. https://www.newyorktimes.com/live/2023/08/1/3/Maui-wildfires-Hawaii-news. Hawaii wildfires. Maui death toll climbs to 93. The wildfires, now the deadliest in the United States in over a century, have left frustrated residents questioning the government's disaster preparedness and response. The number of dead is expected to rise. August 13, 2023. Reporting from Maui. Here is the latest on the Hawaii fires. Excerpts edited by ROSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. The wildfires in Maui, now the deadliest in the United States in more than a century, have left many questions about how so many lives were lost and why government aid has still not reached many survivors. The death toll rose to 93 on Saturday night and was expected to climb even further, officials said. The Maui County Police Chief, John Pelletier, said during a news conference that 2 victims had been identified. A report prepared for Maui County in 2020 warned that the western side of the island, where Lahaina is, was at high risk for wildfires. Kansas, Kansas City, Wyoming, and the Southeast. The energy transition. The clean energy future is a battle for hearts and minds. A broad, retail effort to win the fight against global warming is playing out one person at a time, with nary a mention of climate change. This is the 3rd article in a 3-part series examining the speed, challenges and politics of the American economy moving toward clean energy. August 12, 2023. Like many people driving an electric car for the first time, Mikey Marin had questions. Could he drive hundreds of miles to visit his father without stopping? https://www.newyorktimes.com/interactive/2023/08/1/Climate/electric-car-politics-chevy-general-motors.html. A 34-year-old carpenter took a test drive in a Chevrolet Bolt near Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. I'd like to save money and help the planet. Excerpts edited by Rozep for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. Green energy and transportation have advanced faster than many experts thought possible a few years ago. But many hurdles remain, including efforts by conservative politicians to prolong the use of coal, oil and gas and campaigns by environmentalists and local residents to block new wind turbines, transmission lines and mines. A Save the Planet argument doesn't go very far. Most people won't buy green technology unless it will clearly save them money and wows them. Conservatives in particular don't want government forcing them to buy electric cars or ditch their natural gas appliances, polls show. Those pitching the technology often avoid mentioning climate change. A clean energy future will require painstaking and individually tailored persuasion campaigns. About half of Americans say they are not interested in buying electric cars, and a little more than half say they have not seriously considered solar panels, heat pumps or electric water heaters, a recent Pew Research Center survey found. An operator of a solar installation business in Baldwin City, Kansas, a rural town southwest of Kansas City, believes in climate change, but he learned the hard way not to mention it when marketing solar panels to his neighbors. That's not how you sell it, he said over coffee at his home. Nobody's ever going to make a decision unless it benefits them in a money sense. The solar panel company owner also owns a Tesla, an electric off-road vehicle and an electric Ford F-150 Lightning pickup he uses for his business. It's not unusual for drivers of Teslas and Toyota Prius hybrids to get coal-rolled by diesel trucks rigged to produce clouds of black exhaust on demand. Solar panels power large fans that keep a herd of cows cool in July. The Inflation Reduction Act passed by Democrats last year allocated hundreds of billions of dollars in incentives for wind and solar manufacturing, electric vehicles, and other clean energy. United States, manufacturers in Republican-led states in the southern United States. The New York Times. A clean energy manufacturing boom in the making. New manufacturing investments announced since the Inflation Reduction Act passed in August 2022. The clean energy future is a battle for hearts and minds, The New York Times. Although no Republicans voted for the bill, much of the money has gone to GOP-led states in the South where many automakers, battery manufacturers and solar companies are building factories in part to take advantage of the law's tax breaks. Excerpts edited by Rozep for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. President Biden's energy secretary spent part of July traversing the Southeast in a caravan of electric vehicles. The clean energy future is a battle for hearts and minds, The New York Times. She stopped at universities and elementary schools, a hardware store, and a Baptist church. Not on Ms. Granholm's list of reasons to go green, climate change. She liked to focus on turning the region into a vibrant manufacturing hub. In North and South Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee, solid majorities accept that global warming is real, according to Yale Program on Climate Change Communication. But there is widespread skepticism that humans are responsible. The left is out of control in insisting that burning fossil fuels is causing a planetary crisis, said a woman who drives a Prius. She said she had bought the car to save money on gas. Outside Dalton, Georgia, a manufacturer of solar panels is planning to expand. The factory is in the congressional district represented by Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Republican who has called fossil fuels amazing and climate change a scam. A 49-year-old man, one of Ms. Greene's constituents, said, "I don't have anything against solar, especially if it's creating jobs." The Blue-Green Alliance is a partnership of unions and environmental groups. Its director says a paycheck might convince people to use solar panels. Even in Democratic strongholds, people think with their pocketbooks, not their principles. A 29-year-old woman said she wasn't planning to buy an electric car because they were too expensive. "I know the corporations love them, but I don't see much use for them myself," she said of federal incentives designed to make electric vehicles more affordable. Slightly less than half of Democrats say they support phasing out fossil fuels, according to Pew. And just 12% of Republicans support doing so. That's perhaps why Mr. Biden tends to emphasize the economic upside of his policies. How electrifying everything became a key climate solution. To tackle climate change, we'll need to plug in millions of cars, trucks, home heaters, stoves, and factories. In July, Mr. Biden went to South Carolina, where he taunted Republicans who had voted against climate change and infrastructure bills yet were reaping their benefits. Mr. Biden toured Flex, which makes fast chargers for electric cars and is in the district represented by Joe Wilson, a Republican who said the Inflation Reduction Act was to the detriment of American families. In North Carolina, Republicans were trying to block or roll back efforts to promote electric trucks and buses, energy efficiency, and offshore wind development. Even if some of them deny the science of climate change, they can't deny good-paying jobs, the Democratic North Carolina governor said. In Wyoming, where coal, oil, natural gas, and pickups are cherished, one man tries to get local businesses to install charging stations. He takes out his Tesla Model Y and Ford F-150 Lightning as an Uber driver at night, less to make money than to drum up interest in electric vehicles. A woman, who identified herself as a patriot and small business owner, said, "I don't believe in electric cars. The government could turn them off. The government controls our electricity." While watching a Tesla in a parade of cars, someone commented they're on their way to Jackson, Wyoming, referring to the liberal resort town. When electric vehicles were parked in front of the local Elks Lodge, a man pretending to hold a machine gun fired a spray of imaginary bullets at the electric vehicles. When an electric vehicle owner arranged $174,000 to match a federal grant to install charging stations at the city hall and airport, the Riverton City Council in Wyoming declined the money. The one public charging station in town is often blocked by trucks, sometimes deliberately parked horizontally to make charging impossible. During an obstacle race that was part of a car show, a Tesla driver beat all 40 cars. Ford Motor, GM, and dozens of other companies are investing hundreds of billions of dollars to refit factories and build new ones to produce electric vehicles. They don't want to make cars that only Democrats buy. Polaris, in Minnesota, builds four-wheel off-road vehicles. In April, Polaris began selling a $25,000 electric vehicle called the Ranger XP Kinetic. Advertising barely mentions the environment. You see more wildlife with electric than you do with the motor burning. GM begins selling a battery-powered version of its Chevy Silverado pickup this year, and it will emphasize the truck's 450-mile range and towing capacity. Conservative opposition is wavering. The Republican-controlled legislature in Alabama, where Mercedes-Benz makes electric cars and Polaris builds the Kinetic, has allocated $1 million a year for a campaign to encourage residents to buy electric vehicles. Republican lawmakers in Missouri have not tried to block Kansas City from buying electric cars and trucks. Building inspectors and supervisors in the fire department drive electric cars. At the city-owned airport, electric tractors deliver baggage and electric buses shuttle passengers. The technology saves the city thousands of dollars per vehicle in maintenance and fuel costs. Maine. The energy transition. The clean energy future is roiling both friends and foes. Resistance to wind and solar projects from environmentalists is among an array of impediments to widespread conversion to renewables. https://www.newyorktimes.com/interactive/2023/08/1/2/climate/wind-solar-clean-energy.html reported from Searsport, Maine, from Washington, and from Los Angeles to explore obstacles that could slow down the energy transition. This is the second article in a three-part series examining the speed, challenges and politics of the American economy moving toward clean energy. August 12, 2023. If there is anywhere in the country primed to welcome the clean energy transition, it is Penobscot Bay in Maine. Electricity prices there are high and volatile. The ocean waters are warming fast, threatening the lobster fishery. Miles offshore, winds blow strong enough to heat every home and power every car in the state. Excerpts edited by Rozep for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. For more than 15 years, researchers at the University of Maine have been honing scale models of floating wind turbines inspired by oil rigs. They are now confident they can mass-produce turbine blades the length of football fields and float them miles into the ocean. Standing in their way are environmental groups and local residents, all of whom are committed to a clean energy future and worried about the rapid warming of the earth. Still, they want the state to pick a different site for its so-called wind port, citing the tranquility of Sears Island and its popularity and accessibility as a recreation destination. In parts of China, a growing fraction of electricity from turbines and solar panels is being wasted because the grid lacks capacity. In Australia, clean energy companies have complained about a shortage of skilled workers. At the same time, it tends to take longer to build solar arrays, wind farms, car chargers and transmission lines in the United States than in China, India and Europe, a recent analysis by the International Energy Agency found. Why the U.S. electric grid isn't ready for the energy transition. The current system makes it hard to build the long-distance power lines needed to transport wind and solar nationwide. One survey from 2021 found that only 24% of Americans were willing to live within a mile of a solar farm. The number dropped to 17% for wind farms. Lawsuits trying to stop wind farm development off Massachusetts, groups with funding from fossil fuel interests have stoked fear. Another barrier is determined opposition by many top Republicans, including congressional leaders and their presidential frontrunner. They have consistently tried to expand fossil fuel production and block efforts to promote renewables, and they have vowed to overturn President Biden's climate agenda if they regain full control of Congress and the White House. While some leaders in conservative states have welcomed development of renewables, others have passed laws making it easier for local communities to fight them. A study this spring from Columbia University's Sabin Center for Climate Change Law found a 35% increase last year in local ordinances restricting renewable energy development, as well as a nearly 40% rise in wind or solar projects facing serious organized opposition. If such restrictions became widespread, another recent study found, they could block up to 270 gigawatts of new onshore wind power over the next 3 decades, which is roughly twice the amount installed nationwide today. In 2022, Russia's invasion of Ukraine sent natural gas and home heating rates soaring. Because fossil fuel prices dictate energy costs in the Northeast, residential electricity prices for Maine residents doubled in recent years. Maine cannot reach its renewables goals and less expensive energy bills without offshore generation. That's particularly true because wind blows strongest offshore in the coldest months, when demand for heat is at its highest. The climate bill that Mr. Biden signed last year provided hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks and grants to help make a wide variety of low-carbon technologies such as solar panels, wind turbines, nuclear reactors, or batteries ultimately cheaper than fossil fuels. A recent analysis found that it would cost less for electric utilities to build new wind and solar farms than to operate most of the existing coal-fired power plants, a stunning shift from 15 years ago, when burning coal was the cheapest way to make electricity. For offshore wind, it can take up to 10 years to secure approval before construction can begin. Permitting has proved especially difficult for the nation's antiquated and fragmented electric grid. Since 2000, the United States has barely built any major transmission lines that connect different regions of the country. In Atlantic City, New Jersey, groups have protested and sued to stop federal approval of as many as 98 turbines in close offshore waters. United States. The clean energy future is arriving faster than you think. The United States is pivoting away from fossil fuels and toward wind, solar and other renewable energy, even in areas dominated by the oil and gas industries. https://www.newyorktimes.com/interactive/2023/08/climate/clean-energy-us-fossil-fuels.html. Reported from Tulsa, Oklahoma, from Washington, and from New York, to see how an accelerated energy transition is playing out. This is the first article in a three-part series examining the speed, challenges and politics of the American economy moving toward clean energy. August 13, 2023. The nation that burned coal, oil, and gas for more than a century to become the richest economy on the planet, as well as historically the most polluting, is rapidly shifting away from fossil fuels. Excerpts edited by Rozep for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. Wind and solar power are breaking records, and renewables are now expected to overtake coal by 2025 as the world's largest source of electricity. China, which already leads the world in the sheer amount of electricity produced by wind and solar power, is expected to double its capacity by 2025, 5 years ahead of schedule. In Britain, roughly one-third of electricity is generated by wind, solar and hydropower. And in the United States, 23% of electricity is expected to come from renewable sources this year, up 10 percentage points from a decade ago. Corporations are building new coal mines, oil rigs and gas pipelines. The government continues to award leases for drilling projects on public lands and in federal waters and still subsidizes the industries. Dozens of conservative groups organized by the Heritage Foundation have created a policy playbook, should a Republican win the 2024 presidential election, that would reverse course on lowering emissions. It would shred regulations designed to curb greenhouse gases, dismantle nearly every federal clean energy program and boost the production of fossil fuels. Houston, home to more than 500 oil and gas companies, also has more than 130 solar and wind-related companies. Some of the country's largest wind and solar farms are in the Texas flatlands outside the city, and a huge wind farm has been proposed off the coast of Galveston. The rapid drop in costs for solar energy, wind power and batteries can be traced to early government investment and steady improvements over time by hundreds of researchers, engineers and entrepreneurs around the world. The Inflation Reduction Act provided tax breaks related to electric vehicles, heat pumps and energy efficiency upgrades, solar panel and wind turbine manufacturing and clean hydrogen production. Originally estimated to cost roughly $391 billion between 2022 and 2031, the tax breaks are proving so popular with manufacturers and consumers that estimates now put the cost as high as $1.2 trillion over the next decade. Combined, the three laws have prompted companies to announce at least $230 billion in manufacturing investments so far. In May, New York became the first state to ban gas hookups in most new buildings, requiring all-electric heating and cooking starting in 2026. In May, for the first time ever, wind and solar power in the EU generated more electricity than fossil fuels. Last year, China spent $546 billion on clean energy, far more than any other country in the world. The clean energy future is 1. Arriving faster than you think. 2. Roiling both friends and foes. 3. A battle for hearts and minds. Hawaii, wildfires. United States Office of Political Strategy and Outreach. August 11, 2023. President Biden approves Hawaii disaster declaration. On Thursday, August 10, President Biden declared that a major disaster exists in the state of Hawaii and ordered federal aid to supplement state and local recovery efforts in the areas affected by wildfires beginning on August 8, 2023, and continuing. The president's action makes federal funding available to affected individuals in Maui County. Assistance can include grants for temporary housing and home repairs, low-cost loans to cover uninsured property losses, and other programs to help individuals and business owners recover from the effects of the disaster. Residents and business owners who sustained losses in the designated areas can begin applying for assistance at www.disasterassistance.gov, by calling 800-621-FEMA 3362, or by using the FEMA app. Anyone using a relay service, such as Video Relay Service, VRS, Caption Telephone Service or others, can give FEMA the number for that service. United Kingdom, rural conservatives, wealthy in UK, less wealthy in US? Rozep view, the rural United States is depopulating rapidly and the people left behind in rural areas are often profiled as lower income than their suburban and urban counterparts. This opinion by a New York Times writer is that rural United Kingdom, UK, is a place for people who are wealthier than those in the UK suburbs and cities. This is of interest to residents against wood smoke emission particulates because rural conservatives are profiled in a news article yesterday as those who most vehemently oppose UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's plan to convert oil burners in UK rural areas first, in 2026, to heat pumps, with the rest of the country scheduled to follow 10 years later in 2036. Financial incentives are being offered to rural UK residents to convert from oil burning for heat to heat pumps for heat, so it is interesting that rural UK residents are viewed in this opinion piece to be prosperous, and therefore, according to the profile or rural UK residents in this opinion piece, less in need of actual financial incentives to convert to clean energy for home heat. United Kingdom. https://www.newyorktimes.com/2023/08/opinion/britain-stagnation-growth.html. Can Britain boom and bloom at once? August 12, 2023. Excerpts edited by Rozep for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. British conservatism, of which Larkin was an eccentric representative, has always had a stronger conservationist streak than its American cousin. At a time when Europe as a whole looks stagnant relative to the United States, Britain has joined Italy as the continent's sickest patient, its living standards falling well behind its neighbors, its economy stuck in a 15-year torpor, and its public services, including the vaunted National Health Service, in a condition of generally acknowledged decay. This is a general problem for rich and aging countries, but Britain has taken it to an extreme. Not since the 1870s, according to one estimate, have home prices been so extraordinarily high compared to wages. Why Britain Doesn't Build, describes the urbanist vision of post-World War II Britain's Central Planning Commission, a system of densely populated new towns, connected by rail to the London hub, with plenty of protected countryside in between. But the planners underestimated opposition to dense building even in the new town areas, while areas deemed green belt became impossible to reclassify, so there was always less density and more protected land than the initial vision assumed. Then as Britain grew wealthier and more people became homeowners, the opposition to new building deepened, and the central authority was left with no mandate, unable to either decentralize and deregulate or to simply force new building through. The UK Tory Cabinet Secretary proposed a new urban development, with up to 250,000 homes, around the university town of Cambridge and earned a swift rebuke from a local Tory MP, who called the Cabinet Secretary's vision nonsense plans. Britain is bifurcated into a financial economy and a tourist economy, with general prosperity out of reach. The Cabinet Secretary, a partisan of beautiful and popular development, and in King Charles III, a builder of experimental townships with traditional forms, the UK has some leaders who appreciate a legitimate reason that people fear new building, cheap suburban sprawl or starchitect-designed monstrosities. World. Researchers from 8 countries, led by IITM, study climate impact of power plant emissions. The Week. This study could help frame policies related to controlling PM 2.5 of gaseous emissions from power plants into particulate matter results in United States. How wildfire smoke can permanently damage your brain and body. National Geographic. National Geographic. A growing body of evidence suggests that wildfire smoke raises the risk, smoke, and research on air pollution and wood-burning kitchen fires. United States. Carbon dioxide emissions through land use change, fire, and oxidative peat decomposition. Nature. However, agricultural land conversion accompanied by plantation development, deadwood burning, and peat drying from drainage are major challenges. United States. Wildfire smoke presents health hazard, OHSU News. OHSU News. Reduce sources of indoor air pollution such as smoke from tobacco, wood-burning stoves and candles. Use high-efficiency air cleaning, or HEPA. United States. This national park issues fire restrictions. Why the ban is needed. Travel awaits. Travel awaits. What the restrictions prohibit. The current fire restrictions at Joshua Tree prohibit wood burning and charcoal fires, including campfires, warming. United States. Colorado. Quartz Ridge, Bear Creek fires among several burning in area. The Pagosa Springs Sun. The Pagosa Springs Sun. The SJNF also notes wildfire smoke may affect your health. For more information, go to https://www.colorado.gov/pacific/cdphe/wood-smoke-and-health. Hawaii, Maui. After Maui fires, human health risks linger in the air, water and even surviving buildings. Ceylon. Residents returning to their burned neighborhoods will likely find, more often in recent years, they burn structures that contain treated wood. Hawaii, Maui. What caused Maui's apocalyptic fires? Here's what we know. St. Louis Post-Dispatch. St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Particulate matter refers to airborne pollutants that can be inhaled and the two types that are typically monitored are PM10 and PM2.5. Idaho. Burn bans in place across the inland Northwest and North Idaho, KREM2. KREM2. In Spokane Valley, the Spokane Valley Fire Department, SVFD, has upgraded to wood-burning ban restrictions starting Friday. Louisiana, Alexandria. Vernon Parish Fire District 1 urges public to evacuate before wood fires. WNTZ. WNTZ. A firefighter operates as a wildfire burning a forest in Vaitai Village, on the Aegean Sea island of Rhodes, southeastern Greece, on Tuesday. Michigan. Wildfires and farming activities may be top sources of air pollution linked to increased risk. University of Michigan News. Our findings indicate that lowering levels of particulate matter air at less than 2.5 microns in size, PM2.5 is less than the width of a Mississippi. UK-based energy giant facing scrutiny from residents of Mississippi community. Supertalk Mississippi. According to those in the industry, wood pellets are an eco-friendlier alternative to burning coal, but environmental activists have contended. New Mexico. Atcor United Poly Systems Warehouse Fire Information, City of Albuquerque. City of Albuquerque. Wood burning is not currently prohibited, however, please consider limiting or avoiding wood burning where possible to help protect our air. The forecasting gave an indication of where the smoke plume could be moving and a proactive health alert was issued through Monday morning at Washington, Spokane. WSP Fire Academy's new training buildings offer crucial hands-on practice with flames. The spokesman review. When firefighters are able to train for emergencies in real wood-burning flames, officials say it helps them save lives, including their own. Canada, Northwest Territories, Fort Smith. Evacuation alert issued for Fort Smith, NWT, due to wildfire, CBC News. CBC. The town of Fort Smith, NWT, issued an evacuation alert shortly before 5 p.m. Friday due to a wildfire burning in Wood Buffalo National Park. Canada, Northwest Territories, Wood Buffalo Wildfire. Wood Buffalo Wildfire Update August 10. My True North Now. My True North Now. This resulted in highway closures for the safety of the public due to fire behavior and thick smoke. Highway delays and/or closures are expected to. United Kingdom. The UK government's biomass strategy, a lackluster response to urgent environmental concerns. Energyportal.eu. Although the strategy hints at the government's growing skepticism towards this industry and a desire to shift away from burning wood pellets. United Kingdom. UK biomass strategy won't stop destruction of North American forests. NRDC. NRDC. But it upholds the ongoing fallacy that burning wood from forests is carbon neutral because forests grow quickly and they have already absorbed some. India. Researchers from 8 countries led by IIT Madras study climate impact of power plant emissions. Dev Discourse. Of gaseous emissions from power plants into particulate matter results in insights for framing policies related to controlling PM 2.5. India. Gas emission from NLC Afex Chennai, reveals IIT Madras study. Next. Strategies aimed at reducing PM 2.5 levels from traffic and industries, of gaseous emissions from power plants into particulate matter, PM. India. IITM researchers study impact of power plant emission on climate. The Hindu. Study found conversion of SO2 emissions to particulate matter, aimed at reducing particulate matter 2.5 levels from traffic and industries in India. IIT Madras uses COVID lockdown to find climate impact of power plant emissions. India Today. Emissions from power plants are converted into particulate matter, PM, in PM 2.5 levels, especially in India's polluted coastal clusters. India. Very high particulate pollution over northwest India captured by a high-density in situ sensor network. Nature. Exposure to particulate matter less than 2.5 m in diameter, PM 2.5, is a cause of concern in cities and major emission regions of northern India. India. Weather stations set up in Urdu, Ahmedabad News, The Times of India. The Times of India. The air quality device will monitor PM 2.5 and air quality index, AQI. Particulate matter, said an Ahmedabad University official. Indonesia. Greater Jakarta to ramp up emissions tests to tackle worsening pollution. Asia News Network. PM 2.5 refers to fine, airborne pollutants produced by combustion from vehicles or power plants and other sources, and can be inhaled to cause. Indonesia. Asian capital city named world's most polluted, Globe Echo. Globe Echo. Earlier this month, Jakarta's air was reported to consist of 67 micrograms per cubic meter, UG/M3, of PM 2.5 pollutants, a class of fine. Indonesia. The impact of the haze, the air in Pontianak and Kubu Raya is very unhealthy, Kompas.id. Kompas.id. On Monday at 7:00, the concentration of PM 2.5 particulate matter in Kubu Raya reached 148 micrograms per cubic meter. However, the air quality in Indonesia. Indonesia denies report that Jakarta tops worst air pollution list, Tempo.co English. Tempo.co English. The concentration of particulate matter, PM 2.5, was 93.2 micrograms per cubic meter or 18.6 times higher than the World Health Organization's. Vietnam. Hanoi's air quality stays at unhealthy levels, VN Express International. VN Express International. The PM 2.5 level of the capital city has stayed at 49 micrograms per cubic meter, which is 9.8 times the WHO annual air quality guideline value. PM 2.5 and human health. Air pollution is associated with abnormal left ventricular diastolic function, BMC Public Health. BMC Public Health, Biomed Central. The annual average ambient PM 2.5, PM10 and NO2 concentrations were obtained from the Chemical Data Assimilation System, ChemDAS. PM 2.5 and human health. Dementia risk tied to wildfire particulates, other air pollution, MedPage Today. MedPage Today. Over 10 years, higher concentrations of total PM 2.5 particulate matter smaller than 2.5 microns in diameter were associated with greater PM 2.5 and human health. Pollution and antibiotic resistance, troponin and mortality, MedPage Today. MedPage Today. They are reporting on the association between particulate matter, specifically PM 2.5 air pollution that's 2.5 microns and clinical PM 2.5 and human health. Farming, wildfires linked to rising dementia risk, Mirage News. Mirage News. Our findings indicate that lowering levels of particulate matter air, PM 2.5 is also known to affect the lungs, heart, and in emerging research. PM 2.5 and human health. How does particulate matter air pollution contribute to antibiotic resistance? News Medical. News Medical. PM 2.5 alone may permeabilize the cell membrane, thus facilitating the efficient transfer of antibiotic resistance genes between bacteria. This can. PM 2.5 and human health. Property damage and occupational health hazards caused by wildfire smoke, WebWire. WebWire. People with heart or breathing problems, and children and the elderly may be particularly sensitive to PM 2.5. During a wildfire, the public is